Number 1.
Melisa Bohm has reportedly been missing since February 2018. The 38-year-old woman last spoke to her family members on November 24, 2017, but she continued to be active on Facebook up until February 9, 2018. Melisa's final Facebook post occurred at 7:11 p.m. that evening. The post included a picture of her dog, Lola, and an announcement that she had been approved for an apartment. After this post, Melisa seemingly vanished and has never been seen or heard from again. Various reports state that Melisa had been living a transient lifestyle in the years leading up to her disappearance. Shortly before she vanished, though, Melisa had reportedly been living in an apartment in Portland, Oregon. However, Melisa's final Facebook post about getting approved for another apartment was believed to be in reference to an apartment in Seattle, Washington. It is unclear if Melisa actually traveled to Seattle after the Facebook post was made. There are very few details about the circumstances around Melisa's disappearance, and very little information has been spread in the media. Melisa's case is riddled with more questions than answers. It's unclear when, exactly, she vanished, but it appears that Melisa might have dropped out of sight shortly after her final Facebook post was made. She never replied to any of the comments on the post. Then, weeks after the post was made, a man claiming to be Melisa's ex-boyfriend commented. The comments from the ex-boyfriend appear to be positive on a surface level, but the subsequent replies to his comments suggest that there is much more to the story. Her ex-boyfriend commented, "I miss you biscuits, please hit me up, I live in Tacoma off 66th, and Ferdinand I would love to see you." Just minutes later, he wrote another comment, stating, "I hope everything is going good for you and you found yourself again. I've never stopped loving you, and I'm here for you, if you need me. I opened my tile business again, and things are looking up. Give Lola a hug and kiss from her dad and please get a hold of me, I love you too very much." When a person replied to question if the ex was still seeing Melisa, he replied, "No, she old, sick, everyone, we broke up when I was in jail, and she lost everything I owned including my car, and I just came to realize she didn't love me at all. She just used me." Another person replied to the ex-boyfriend's second comment, stating, "I thought you were engaged to someone else, you dork." The ex replied, "I am, but I still care about Taylor, I need to know if she's okay, I've been here some disturbing shit, brother." There is no further elaboration on the disturbing shit that the ex reportedly heard, and it's unclear if this information has ever been investigated by authorities. If the comments posted are true, it also appears that Melisa's reported ex-boyfriend got engaged to another person very shortly after their reported breakup, which raises questions about a potential love triangle. Additionally, the ex initially made these comments under the guise of being concerned about Melisa, who he seemingly refers to as Taylor in the above comment, but the subsequent comments suggest that he might have more information about her disappearance. Months later, on September 22, 2018, Melisa's sister commented on the post to ask any of the previous commenters if they had seen or heard from Melisa. The comment did not receive any replies. In March 2019, Melisa's sister commented on a post made by the reported ex-boyfriend, asking him to reach out to her. 2 months later, Melisa's stepmother made a similar comment. Neither women received a reply to their comments. It's unclear if they were ever able to get in touch with him. Since then, there has seemingly been very little information about Melisa's disappearance in the mainstream media or on social media. Although Melisa was living in Oregon or Washington around the time of her disappearance, her page on the Charlie Project states that authorities in Taunton, Massachusetts, are investigating her disappearance. It's possible that Melisa has ties to that area through family or work, but there are no other reports that mention Taunton in regards to her disappearance. Melisa remains missing today. Her family continues to search for her. If you have any information about Melisa's whereabouts, please contact 508-824-7522.
Number 2.
Shacaiah Blue Harding loves to sing and dance, often spontaneously in public. People would stare, and Shacaiah didn't care. She was very much a free spirit. She was also very close to her family and extended family, as was the norm in her Native American culture. Shacaiah, who often went by her middle name, Blue, found herself living a tough lifestyle by the time she was 19 years old. She had recently begun struggling with drugs and started bouncing from place to place, but always stayed in touch with family. Shacaiah was seen walking on Buena Vista Drive in Billings, Montana on July 23, 2018, around 4 p.m. Usually active on social media, she posted on her Facebook page just before midnight a very cryptic and mysterious post. Shacaiah would never be seen or heard from again. Where is Shacaiah Blue Harding? Shacaiah was born November 28, 1998, to her mother, Tamara Bierkemaskout. Tamara said Shacaiah was unique in style and personality and never cared what others thought of her. The family was very close. There was a large network of aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents. She was also very talented in making videos and doing hair and makeup. In fact, for a while as a teenager, she had planned to attend cosmetology school and pursue that as a career path. Shacaiah would attend parties and get-togethers as a teenager, but despite her outgoing personality, she wasn't into the party scene. She didn't drink or do drugs, even if others around her were. However, that would all change in the spring of 2018, when Shacaiah was 19 years old, although the reasons which may have led her down that path are unclear. During this time she also became more independent and would also go several days without seeing her family members. Her cousin would describe being with her and seeing her behave oddly and call her out on it. She would immediately snap back to reality and start acting normal. However, her family did start to have concerns about her behavior. On July 5, 2018, Shacaiah went to her mom's house to return a cell phone. Her mom, Tamara, said it was a bit unusual because Shacaiah didn't willingly like to give this phone back to her mom. A few weeks would go by, and the cousins and other family members would start talking and realized no one had seen Shacaiah in a while, so they started looking for her. They checked in with people she knew and places she was known to frequent, but no one had seen Shacaiah. They learned she was last seen walking on Buena Vista Drive in Billings, Montana at 4 p.m. on July 25, 2018. It was not confirmed who saw her. Rumors were she had just gotten out of a relationship and posted an odd Facebook status update that night around midnight. It stated, "All depressing, but I'm typing it like it's everything but. Relying on feelings suck." There were no additional posts made after that one. Her family starts trying to look for her on their own. Remember, this is a girl who often went missing for days on end, and they knew she had been possibly struggling with drugs. However, when they couldn't find her anywhere, Shacaiah's mom Tamara finally goes to file a missing person report. The official report was taken on August 20, 2018, by the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office. Almost a month has passed since anyone saw Shacaiah. But police don't really start investigating the case, and not much is done. And I've seen this a lot when people with a past or drug problem, or those who live a transient type of lifestyle go missing, which is very sad. In this case, there is a lot of evidence that Indigenous Americans who go missing also don't receive adequate attention from either law enforcement or the media. In the case of Shacaiah Blue Harding, we have all elements: an Indigenous girl living on the streets with a possible drug problem. So the family was on their own. They had flyers made up and they started to hit the streets. They received a tip that said that Shacaiah had been hanging around a man that lived in Billings and that he had previously been accused of rape and was overall just known to be trouble. When law enforcement refused to question this man, Shacaiah's family went over to see him themselves. And of course, he denied knowing where Shacaiah was. It came out that this tip came from the man's ex-girlfriend who had seen him stalking Shacaiah when they were together. Now, this could be a case of an angry ex-girlfriend out for revenge, or perhaps she does know that her ex, who has a violent history, had an obsession with Shacaiah. I guess we just don't know, as this tip wouldn't go any further. It sure would have been helpful if law enforcement trained in interviewing people would have done just that, interviewed this man. Perhaps they would have learned more than the family did. A friend of Tamara's would tell Tamara that she saw Shacaiah downtown, and she had been talking to some men who were known to be involved in the human trafficking industry. The family wasn't able to track down these men, and this friend has since passed away. And it makes me think, how are we able to identify known human traffickers as members of the public, yet we can't arrest them and get them off the streets? It's so baffling to me that this can be happening right under our noses and we can't do more to shut these operations down. Another lead wouldn't come in for a while, and when it does, it actually comes from law enforcement. Finally, somehow, they were able to learn that someone purchased a bus ticket from the area to Colorado. But, other than that, they were unable to research this further. When the family pressed them to find surveillance footage or start investigating to see if this person actually got on the bus and made it to Colorado, the police stated that it was too weak of a lead to put forth all the effort that would take. Law enforcement said that it would require a lot of paperwork to make that happen, and they weren't able to do that. So that lead would take them nowhere. Another person that Shacaiah's family suspected was her ex-boyfriend Eric. Eric and Shacaiah had a rocky relationship, and some friends have said that he was abusive, although there are no formal reports confirming that. Eric also lived in New Mexico, and her family felt that she may have purchased a bus ticket to Colorado attempting to make it down to the New Mexico area to be with Eric. Of course, the lack of information in this case is seriously frustrating, and I tried to get a better look at who Shacaiah was by looking through her social media. I found that she has 2 Facebook pages, one under Shacaiah Husted, with her last known post being put up on June 4, 2018, and only 10 friends. It lists her home as being Billings, Montana. This page was started in 2017. There is another page, which is actually one of the 10 friends on this page, that she has under Harding Blue Shacaiah. This page was started back in 2011, but her last post on this page was on July 25, 2018. This is the last Facebook post that is mentioned in her case files. This page also lists her residence as Fort Riley, Kansas. We have a few main theories in the case, although almost anything is possible. Shacaiah ran off and is living on the streets still. Did her life become so messed up in drugs and other illegal activities that she can't even come home anymore? This is one of the theories that her family believes might be the case. Shacaiah is being held in a sex trafficking ring. Her family also believes this could be a possibility, that she is alive and being held against her will, especially knowing she might have been communicating with some men known to be involved in the human trafficking world. Shacaiah overdosed on the streets. With her involvement in drugs, this can't be ruled out either. Shacaiah met with foul play. Also, a possibility, especially when you surround yourself with unsavory characters and violent people. So what do you think might have happened to Shacaiah Blue Husted? Her family believes she is alive out there and begs for help in finding their daughter, their sister, their cousin, and their friend. And this is just the kind of case that can benefit from a public push, so please share her story any way that you can. Shacaiah's family deserves answers, and Shacaiah herself might be in need of help. Shacaiah is a Native American girl, standing about 5'4" tall at the time of her disappearance and weighing 120 pounds. She has black hair and brown eyes, and may also be going by the name Blue. If you have any information regarding Shacaiah, please contact the Yellowstone Sheriff Office at 406-256-2929 or check out the Facebook page her family has set up for, and reach out to them. You can find the page titled, "Bring Shacaiah Harding Blue Home."
Number 3.
18-year-old Sebastian Ty Husted, known as Ty to friends and family, was last seen in Centerville, Iowa on January 22, 2018. He disappeared after carpooling to his job with a co-worker and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Sebastian Ty Husted was 18 years old when he went missing in January 2018. He was born and raised in Centerville, Iowa, and is the youngest of 3 siblings. Ty had recently began a job power washing hog units for a local company and had moved into his first apartment just a few weeks before his disappearance. He was in the process of making changes in his life, preparing for his child on the way. His son was born in May, a few months after he went missing. On Sunday, January 21, 2018, Ty called his older sister Isha and asked if she could take him grocery shopping, since he didn't have a driver's license. She took him shopping and dropped him back off at his apartment, taking a load of his laundry with her back home to wash. When she returned later that evening, he didn't answer the door, so she left his clothes outside the door. She figured he was sleeping since he'd been working so many hours at his new job that he had started a few weeks prior. On January 22, 2018, Ty got a ride with his coworker to their power washing job, located on a hog farm south of Lineville, Iowa, in Mercer County, Missouri, about an hour's drive away. The coworker, whom Ty had only met a few weeks prior, lived in the same apartment building as Ty. Ty's boss later confirmed that he saw him that morning before they left for the job site together. Shortly after arriving on the job site, Ty began texting his brother Malcolm, asking him to come pick him up. He said his coworker was acting strange and had begun acting aggressively towards him, making him very uncomfortable. When his brother called back to ask for directions to the job site, Ty didn't pick up the phone. This was the last time anyone heard from him. He was reported missing to the Centerville Police Department by his family 2 days later. The Mercer County Sheriff's Office took over the case from the Centerville Police Department since Ty was last seen in their jurisdiction. There has been no activity on Ty's credit cards or bank account since he went missing. When he disappeared, all he had with him was his work uniform and cell phone. Police brought Ty's coworker in for questioning, but he refused to answer any questions about what happened that day and was subsequently released. His family says they've tried reaching out to the coworker repeatedly, but he hasn't responded. Police were able to trace Ty's cell phone, and the last ping before it went dead was near the hog farm in Mercer County, Missouri on the day he disappeared. Police searched the hog farm a few weeks after Ty's disappearance and drained the ponds on the property, but no sign of Ty was found. Authorities say they have followed 40 to 50 leads, but have found no concrete evidence as to Ty's location. Since his disappearance, his family has traveled to Mercer County and the surrounding area multiple times, trying to get as much word out about Ty as possible. At the time of his disappearance, Ty was making changes in his life, preparing for fatherhood. His family does not believe he would leave on his own accord. His case is classified as endangered missing and remains unsolved. African American Caucasian male with black hair and brown eyes. He stands 5'11" tall and weighs 200 pounds. Ty has a tattoo of outlaw on his left forearm a tattoo of Sebastian on his right forearm, and a tattoo of two crossed revolvers, skulls, and roses on chest. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Sebastian Ty Husted, please contact the Mercer County Sheriff's Office at 660-748-3165 or the Centerville Police Department at 641-437-7100.
Number 4.
On the evening of the 5th of October 2018, TV production assistant Terrence Woods Jr. disappeared while shooting on location in Idaho. Terrence had been working on the first season of the Discovery Channel documentary series, Gold Rush. Dave Turin's Lost Mine, with London-based production company Raw TV. As part of a 12-person crew, Terrence followed host Turin's journey exploring disused mines in the mountainous regions of the western United States. In the hours before he was reported missing, Terrence posted a photo to his private Instagram page. It showed a forest of densely packed fir trees with a river running through the middle, underneath an overcast sky. He captioned it with one word: Idaho. Terrence, who was 26 years old at the time, went missing after he ran into a forest in the Oregon area, not far from where this photo was taken. He hasn't been seen since. On the evening of his disappearance, as the shoot wrapped up, Terrence told one of the two local women who had been helping the crew with transport that he needed to use the bathroom. Moments after Terrence had spoken to the woman, associate producer Simon G. noticed that Terrence had dropped his radio on the floor. The next thing he saw was Terrence running down a steep cliff that led to the forest, where he disappeared into the trees. G and other locals in the area tried to go down the cliff after him, but the terrain in Oregon is rough and unpredictable. They returned with their clothes torn and covered in blood. G would later tell Terrence's father that his son was running faster than he had ever seen anyone run before. Terrence's disappearance was reported to the Idaho County Sheriff's Office at 6:41 p.m. that same evening. According to an update posted to its Facebook page, due to the late hour of the report, the search for Terrence did not begin until the following day. Search teams made up of dogs, ground searchers on foot and all-terrain vehicles along with helicopter teams that could detect body heat were sent out. Unable to find any trace of Terrence, the search was called off after 6 days. To Terrence's family and friends, the story of his disappearance doesn't add up. The original Idaho County Sheriff's Office report says that Terrence was having a really hard time emotionally and had a mental breakdown earlier today. When the 911 call was made, the caller, who was not part of the Raw TV crew, alleged that Terrence had been dealing with mental health issues throughout the shoot. However, when pushed to confirm these statements by Terrence's family in the weeks following his disappearance, they were retracted. When the Fox 5 podcast Missing Pieces attempted to contact people present on the night he went missing, they were only able to speak to one of the locals. Terrence's parents, Terrence Woods Sr. and Valerie Woods, both strongly believe that Raw TV is hiding the truth about their son's disappearance. He was responsible, Valerie tells us. He wouldn't run away without good reason, unless he was scared. They believe that Terrence, who was the only black crew member on the shoot in Idaho, felt intimidated or was mistreated by his colleagues. They say that he wanted to return to his home in Maryland. Raw TV denies hiding any details surrounding Terrence's disappearance. A spokesperson told us. The police have closely examined the case, including Terrence's correspondence with us and others, and found nothing to support the allegations you have put to us. It also denies that Terrence was subject to any mistreatment or intimidation by the crew. As the last Raw TV employee to see Terrence before his disappearance, G had to alert his next of kin to the news. Raw TV flew Terrence Woods Sr. and Valerie Woods from Maryland to Idaho the week after their son was reported missing. G, along with another Raw TV employee from London, met with them at the sheriff's office. The first thing Simon said on the phone and when I met him in the police department was, "I had high expectations for your son, but when I met him, he didn't stand up to them," Terrence Sr. tells us. He said, "I asked him to get me some fruit, and he turns to me and says, 'What kind of fruit?' My son doesn't know Simon, why wouldn't he ask that? He's known him for 3 days." Valerie had a similar phone call with G prior to flying out to Idaho, in which he expressed his disappointment in Terrence before providing details about the disappearance. "You know, I had to explain to him that I talked to several people he worked on jobs with, and they gave nothing but praise about the work that he did," she says. "I couldn't understand why all of a sudden now he goes missing, and you're telling me that he wasn't good at what he was doing. It doesn't make sense to me." Raw TV denies that any of its team expressed disappointment in Woods or said that he was not living up to expectations at any time. A spokesperson from Raw TV told us Simon phoned Mr. Woods Sr. to ascertain Terrence's normal behavior, state of mind and any other information he could give the S&R search and rescue team. It was raised by Simon that Terrence had been distracted at times. This was in order to establish whether this would be normal behavior. Almost 2 weeks after Woods was reported missing, Raw TV released a statement regarding his disappearance. The statement read, "We can confirm that Terrence Woods, a member of one of our production teams, went missing on Friday, October 5, in Oregon, Mitrust National Forest, Idaho. All inquiries regarding the status of the search should be directed to the Idaho County Sheriff's Office." Valerie and Terrence Sr. say that in the months following this, Raw TV was not active in the search to find him. They allege that the production company has kept its contact with them and others who want answers about Terrence to a minimum. "It's baffling, I just don't understand. I don't know why it happened," Terrence's friend and former colleague, Gia Tabasco, tells us. "Is it because he's a junior member of staff? Is it because he's black?" Some of Terrence's friends and colleagues who work in television declined to comment for this piece, citing fears of being blacklisted or not receiving work or a wider backlash within the television industry. We were shown an email exchange between Raw TV and a friend of Woods who wishes to remain anonymous. Dated July 2020, the email was sent to a number of senior staff members at Raw TV, including Jolie Feather, the company's CEO. Its subject line was "Black Lives Matter," and the message asked whether the production company would speak out about Woods' disappearance, as well as asking for more information on its plan to encourage diversity. Feather responded to the email, describing Woods' disappearance as heartbreaking, sick, and stating that Raw TV continued to hope that he will be found. She did not say whether she or any other representative from the company would be willing to meet with Woods' parents or review its diversity policies. Feather did, however, note that the Idaho County Sheriff's Office commended Raw for our support. News of Woods' disappearance began to make its way to London. Friends that Maryland-born Woods made during his 5 years in the UK, first as a student at the American International University, then working on shows like The Voice UK, were rocked by the news. A 2019 tweet from one reads, "I lost touch with him when he moved back to USA from London and was Googling his name to see if he wanted to meet up as I am planning to go to Washington, D.C. I didn't expect to find that he was missing." Sherilyn Andrew Wilf met Woods when they worked together on The Voice UK in 2017. They became close, quickly developing a sibling dynamic. On the night of his disappearance, Andrew Wilf's boss at The Voice UK, who had also worked with Woods, called her to break the news. As Andrew Wilf understands, it's possible that she was alerted to Woods' disappearance before his parents, due to Raw TV not having their phone number or contact details. It had to reach out to the production company where her boss worked, in order to find these details. Raw TV claims that the next of kin details provided to them by Terrence were those of a friend in London. For Tabasco, who met Woods in 2016 and describes him as the most pure, the news came from Facebook. "I just screamed. I started crying," she says. "It just didn't make sense. You know, if somebody's going through something, or they're a stressful person, or whatever, you're like, okay, cool, the person took off because of mental health, or whatever. For Terrence to run off? It's very bad." Like Valerie and Terrence Sr., some of Terrence's former colleagues raised concerns about his treatment by Raw TV. An ex-Raw TV employee tells us that there is a laddie culture at the company. "There was a toxic undercurrent which made me feel very uncomfortable," they said. "There were conversations where they would make disparaging comments about people they were looking to hire. It made me feel quite uncomfortable." This ex-employee, who also worked on the Gold Rush series, said that while toxic work culture sadly isn't a rarity in the TV industry, Raw TV was one of the most difficult places they had worked. "I've worked on similar feeling shoots, but we were different in the sense that it felt entrenched within the culture," they said. Raw TV denies these claims, saying that this is not reflective of the culture at Raw. Following Terrence's disappearance, Tabasco says that there needs to be better mental health support for people who work in television, especially those in junior roles like Terrence. "You literally just have to fend for yourself. I think it's so sad that it happened to him because he is one of the nicest, calmest, most gentle people," she says. "It's not making sense at all. I have to speak out because it's a human life. I don't feel like I should just let this get swept under the carpet. If we have to use Terrence to make an example of that, then so be it." Rochelle Newman, another friend of Terrence who also works in television, says that a full investigation should be launched into his disappearance. "We need a timeline of events from when Terrence arrived in Idaho until they said that he disappeared. We need a full investigation into the crew," she says. "If it was me who was filming and traveling for work, I would want the same to be done." The details of the night Terrence went missing may remain unclear, but his friends and family are determined to find answers. Earlier this month, a group of them started the Instagram account @FanTerrenceWoods, and Andrew Wilf has publicly called out Raw TV for what she sees as their lack of care for Woods' mental well-being. This came after Feather appeared on a panel at the Edinburgh Television Festival discussing work culture and diversity. Another tweet by Newman, which includes a video about the night Terrence went missing, has received 2,600 retweets and counting. Last week, entertainment news website Deadline published a long piece on this story. In a statement provided to Vice, Raw TV said, "Terrence was a popular figure at Raw. He was a well-liked and valued member of the production team, and his disappearance deeply affected us all." Terrence went missing in a remote, densely wooded and mountainous area in Idaho that was particularly challenging to search. From the outset, our location team was actively involved in the search for Terrence, and we put a great deal of effort and resource into trying to locate him, which included flying his mother and father, along with 2 of Raw's executives, to Idaho to help with the investigations being carried out by the sheriff's office. We have the deepest sympathy for Terrence's family and friends. It is truly heartbreaking that Terrence has not been found, and we continue to hope that he will be. In such a tragic case, there will inevitably be speculation about his disappearance, which is neither helpful or fair to Terrence, his family, or the crew who worked so hard to try and help. The thorough police investigation has found no evidence to support any of the speculative claims, and this remains a tragedy. The sheriff's office has acknowledged that we did all that we were able to do to help and went well beyond any reasonable expectation in the search. We will maintain regular contact with the Idaho County Sheriff's Office, and the case remains open until it is resolved." 2 years on from the shoot in Idaho, Terrence's friends laugh as they remember stories about him. For Andrew Wilf, his inability to cook sticks out in her mind. "All he liked was mushrooms and McDonald's," she says. "One day, we were like, if you like mushrooms so much, why don't you try this pasta? And then he was like, this is the best thing I've ever had, I'm going to have it every day, and he did. He was true to his word, just really sweet." Tabasco, who took Woods under her wing when he was training to be a runner, remembers his dedication to getting a good night's sleep. "He's so responsible. We used to go to the pub, and everyone would stay until at least 9 p.m., but he would leave at around 7 p.m., and I used to laugh at him and be like, why are you leaving now?" she says. He's really to himself and selective of who he hung around with. If he likes you, he'd chill with you the whole day. While these memories are precious, everyone I spoke to who knew Terrence wants clarity about what happened on the night he went missing. Valerie is determined to find her son. "We kept getting conflicting information," she says. "One minute the police department are saying the case is closed and the next, they're saying it's still active. I haven't heard anything from them in over a year now." When contacted by Vice for clarification on the status of Woods' case, the Idaho Sheriff County's office said, "Terrence Woods is still missing, and his case is still open, but not active. We follow up on any new information, of which there has been very little, but do not have anyone actively searching for him. There's no specific amount of time a missing person case remains active. It remains open as long as the person is missing, but is closed regarding man-hours spent searching when we have done all we can do." Back home in Maryland, Terrence Sr. says that each day since Terrence's disappearance has been just as hard as the first. "I don't want to watch no movies with someone running through the woods because I think of my son," he says. "If I close my eyes, I see my son crying and yelling. Some nights I hear my son saying, 'Dad. Dad.' I walk around the house and look at his room. He keeps photos of Terrence on his dresser, and a painting he did hangs above the closet. The Dodge Charger Hemi he bought for his son sits unused on the driveway. Every so often, Terrence Sr. runs the engine so that the battery won't run down before his son, he hopes, returns. The last time I saw T, I took him to the airport and he said, 'See you later, Dad,' and I said, 'See you sooner,' just like I always did, and I hugged him," Terrence Sr. says. "Anytime I've got to go over to the airport for work, I really don't like going because I see the bay that I took my son in."
Number 5.
Phillips was last seen leaving a friend's residence in the 400 block of East 9th Street in Berwick, Pennsylvania at 11 p.m. on June 13, 2018. She went to her friend's home and said she'd been in a fight with her boyfriend and that someone named Dave was going to pick her up. Has never been heard from again. She wasn't working at the time of her disappearance and didn't have a driver's license, and she left her cellular phone behind. In May 2021, Harold David Hallman III was charged with criminal homicide in Phillips' case. He was already in jail awaiting trial for the murder of Erica Schultz, a Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania woman. He'd been charged with that murder in December 2020. A photo of Hallman is posted with this case summary. Phillips had been seeing him, although she had a boyfriend, and Hallman was married. Investigators believe Hallman was the Dave who was supposed to pick her up on the night of her disappearance, although Hallman said he never picked her up that night. According to Hallman's wife, she knew her husband was seeing another woman, but when Phillips' boyfriend called and said he knew as well, Hallman got angry and said he would kill either Phillips or the boyfriend. Hallman confessed to the murder. He stated he picked up Phillips and took her to a wooded area near Hobby Road. He walked into the woods and told Phillips they were going to build a fire, But instead he struck her over the head with a hammer several times, slashed her throat and stabbed her. Hamlyn subsequently told his wife he had killed Phillips, and when she didn't believe him he showed her digital photos of a woman's dead body. Months after the crime happened, according to Hamlyn's wife, she went with him to the site of the homicide to remove evidence. He took some black trash bags and filled them with clothing and some parts of Phillips' body, then put the bags in some dumpsters behind the AMC theaters in Scott Township, Pennsylvania. Hamlyn's other victim, Schultz, was killed in the same location off Hobby Road where he reportedly killed Phillips. He met both women on an online dating app. Authorities stated he also had links to Ashley Parlier, a young woman who disappeared from Battle Creek, Michigan in 2005. When he was interviewed by police in January 2021, Hamlyn asked if all three cases, that of Phillips, Schultz and Parlier, could be combined because he wasn't interested in a trial. Parlier's name had not been mentioned in the investigation before. Hamlyn subsequently confessed to her killing. In July 2021, he was charged with murder in her case as well. Phillips has two young sons, who are now in the care of relatives. Her body has not been found, but foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 6.
At around 3 p.m. on Saturday 16 June 2018, Trevor Hamlyn was last seen by his roommate near his Imogene Crescent home in the small town of Paradise, Newfoundland. He had plans to attend a party that evening and was carrying a black backpack with a bottle of whiskey and some ginger ale in it. Trevor, who was known as Pepsi to those close to him, was reported missing by his family 3 days later after he failed to contact them. The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary began looking into Trevor's disappearance, and in the early stages of the investigation, they received information suggesting the 33-year-old was recently spending time in the woods with unknown individuals. They checked ferry and flight records to ensure Trevor hadn't left the province of his own accord. He hadn't. Trevor's family launched appeals on social media asking members of the public to come forward if they'd seen Trevor or knew anything about where he may be. In the weeks following, Ashley and Jeff Hamlyn, Trevor's siblings, stopped going to work so they could put up missing posters, hand out flyers, and comb areas of Paradise the RNC hadn't searched yet. Police asked residents in the area to check their security camera footage, as well as their dash cams, in hopes of finding out whether Trevor was walking or was picked up by someone. The only video Trevor is known to appear in is of poor quality and doesn't show how he left his neighborhood. The RNC also went door-to-door interviewing over 30 neighbors, but uncovered little new information. On 25 June, Trevor's family were conducting one of their ground searches when they found something in a wooded area. A cell phone, which the RNC later confirmed to be Trevor's. It wasn't his current cell phone that's still missing to this day. It was an older, broken cell phone, lying face up in the grass with no dirt on it. Ashley believes it was placed there deliberately. She said, "We even had a private tracker who came out, and there was no scent of Trevor at all in the whole area, so how does his phone just appear? And in such good condition? I mean, it had a cracked screen, but there was no dirt, no leaves, no nothing on it." The phone was analyzed and found to provide no new insight into Trevor's disappearance. Then in October 2018, something odd happened. One of Trevor's friends sent out a group Snapchat, and it was opened by Trevor's account. Law enforcement was able to gain access to his profile and began monitoring activity on the app. Despite this development, time passed with little progress in the case, and although Trevor's family continued to search for him, they were growing increasingly frustrated with the pace of the investigation and lack of communication from the RNC. Jeff said in an October 2018 interview, "The RNC were helpful and respectful at first, but now it seems they have other issues that require their attention, and my brother's case isn't a priority, even though we constantly provide them with the information they cannot obtain themselves." A few weeks prior to when he was last seen, Trevor told his sister a deep cut he had on his arm came from holding a piece of wood up so his friend could chop it with an axe. Ashley remembers being suspicious of this story. The children grew up in a relatively rural area, and she believes her brother would have known better than to chop wood that way. Trevor refused to go to hospital to have the injury treated until days later, when his mother finally convinced him to. Trevor's sister theorizes that he may have fallen in with a bad crowd and seen something he wasn't supposed to. The person who was supposedly in the woods with Trevor when his arm injury happened has never come forward, and Ashley thinks the cut was a warning to her brother of what, she's not sure. Ashley describes Trevor as a happy, sociable guy who had a lot of friends and was well liked. He grew up in Mount Pearl before moving to Paradise, where he ran a siding business. It's been over 2 years since Trevor vanished, and there have been no arrests in connection to his case.
Number 7.
Wesley Billingsly was an up-and-comer in the business world. Having graduated from San Diego State University in 2016 with a business degree, Wes played a major role in 2 different startup companies. Shortly after he graduated, he left San Diego to move back to Sacramento, California, where he was from and where his mother still resided. Wesley's goal was to save money and then return to San Diego. In February of 2018, he moved back to San Diego. However, he fell into some difficult times and ended up couch surfing between some friends' places. On the evening of June 12, 2018, Wesley was supposed to meet up with some friends for dinner. Wesley would not show up. On June 13, 2018, Wes had plans to help some friends move. Again, Wesley would not show up. In fact, no one would hear or see Wesley again. Wesley Billingsly, also going by Wes a lot of the time, was born on August 17, 1993. He grew up in Sacramento, California with his mom Crystal and 3 older siblings. Wesley attended San Diego State University and fell in love with the San Diego area. While at the university, Wes was very social, joining a fraternity and enjoying everything about being in college in Southern California. It was noted that the fraternity he was in was a rowdy one. A partying fraternity that would see several suspensions from the university and sexual harassment charges during the time that Wesley was part of it. It doesn't appear that Wesley, however, was ever part of those charges or committed any crime at all while at San Diego State. Wes graduated in 2016 with a business, communications, and marketing degree. He eventually made the decision to move back to Sacramento, live at home for a while to save money, and then return to San Diego. His mother, Crystal, has said that his goal was really always to get back to Southern California. He felt at home there and really thought that's where he could make a good future for himself. In February 2018, Wesley was finally ready to move back to San Diego. He would move in with some roommates, and in addition to being part of 2 startup companies, he was working in ad sales as well. However, despite regular contact between Crystal and Wesley, Crystal said she was unaware that her son had lost his job and the friend he was living with had asked him to leave since he couldn't contribute to the rent. Crystal said it pained her to learn this later. Every time she talked to him on the phone, he seemed happy, upbeat, and positive. But in reality, things were falling apart, and he didn't want to worry his mother. Wes began couch surfing, spending his time between 3 different friends' houses or apartments in the Pacific Beach area. Most of his personal belongings were kept in his black Ford Expedition. Wesley had supposedly lost his job in advertising sales, but he was still working 2 businesses. BAM Entertainment worked among the club promoter scene, booking, and scheduling talent, and he also was the co-founder of On Deck Official. On Deck official is still around, being run by Wesley's business partner, Dylan Talley. Here is what is said about On Deck official on their webpage. In 2015, On Deck was established in San Diego, California by a group of young artists and entrepreneurs. We started On Deck as a lifestyle brand and a platform for ourselves and other upcoming artists to create fashion, music, and events. We have since grown far beyond our home in Southern California and are currently headquartered in Los Angeles. On Deck was made by creators for creators and continues to provide a platform for upcoming artists to express themselves. On Deck is the future of style and sound. Since Wesley had also created an entertainment company, BAM Entertainment, I think it's safe to say Wesley enjoyed the entertainment industry as well as being an entrepreneur. This would come up later as it becomes a distinct possibility that this party and club scene may have led him to drugs and an unsavory crowd of people. As Wesley couch surfed in Pacific Beach, he was known to frequent the Vons grocery store, even knowing the cashiers there by name. On the morning of June 12, 2018, Wes drove by this Vons store, saw some people he knew, smiled, and waved as he rode by. Little did those people know, they would be the last ones to see Wesley Billingsly. On the evening of June 12, Wes had plans to meet up with some friends for dinner, but he was a no-show. The next day, June 13, he had told some friends he would help them move. Again, Wesley was a no-show. In the meantime, Mom Crystal reaches out to Wes, but receives no reply. Usually a daily poster on social media, his pages went dark. It does seem odd, but his mom initially doesn't think much of it. After all, he is a 24-year-old young man. However, soon, some friends would reach out to Crystal to let her know they haven't seen or heard from Wesley. It was Crystal who reported Wesley missing. This is a tough one for San Diego Police Department. Here is a young man who just seemed to vanish. But he didn't really have a stable home in the area, and as an adult, he certainly has every right to disappear. They told Crystal that he probably just needed a mental break, especially since he recently lost his job and was homeless. Crystal just knew that something was wrong and made the 8.5-hour drive down to San Diego. Crystal started at the Vons and went around talking to people and putting up posters for her missing son. There would be no leads, no clues, absolutely no signs of Wesley anywhere. Now, police did start to pursue this case as a missing person, but they were also left with no viable leads to work with, leading many to still believe that Wesley just took off on his own. That is, until 2 months later, a discovery is made which prompts everyone to ask even more questions. Wesley's large black Ford Expedition is found abandoned in a rural area of the South Bay area, which is about 20 minutes south of Pacific Beach. South Bay is near the Mexico border, but the area where his truck was found doesn't indicate that his intention was to go to Mexico. It was on a dirt road, surrounded by horse farms. Not exactly walking distance to the border crossing, but some still thought that is likely what happened. Wesley just went to Mexico. It appeared most of his belongings were in the truck, although it does not specifically mention items such as his cell phone, wallet, etc. Crystal would take a translator with her, cross into Mexico herself and file a missing persons report with the Mexican authorities. Interesting fact: in the past, Mexico would share John Does they came across, or even crime stats, with the U.S. consulate side of the border, but they had stopped doing that a few years ago. As the investigations would continue, Crystal would go to Mexico several times to visit the morgue and look through the books of photographs of unidentified bodies that came through. Which is horrible. An unimaginable task, but Crystal was determined to do everything she could to find her son. No stone would be left unturned. Crystal also worked tirelessly to keep the media on top of Wesley's story, but it was hard. Local media would pick up her story here and there, but not much attention was given beyond that. And even with that coverage, Crystal says she has had to work to obtain the media she has for Wesley. This is clearly a mother who loves her son beyond measure and would do anything to find him and bring him home. San Diego County in particular has a large number of missing person cases. In 2020, there were 1,100 adults reported missing. Of those, 24 are still open. Investigators say their proximity to the border plays a role in those numbers and that most people are found pretty quickly as they just come home. Even more alarming, in 2020, there were 900 children reported missing from San Diego County. Of those, 100 are still open cases. So far in 2021, the Missing Person Unit in San Diego says they have 53 open missing person cases currently. I get the struggle of law enforcement. Is there enough manpower for the sheer number of cases? And how much time do you devote to each case, especially in an area where 98% come home on their own accord within a week? But what about that 2%? It's a battle that seems almost impossible to win. And I get the struggle of a mother whose heart is breaking. Her world has stopped, but for everyone else, it continues to go on. And the pain must be constant. For some reason, this case reminds me a bit of the McStay family case. In 2010, a family in California, the McStay family, vanished. Rumors were rampant that they crossed over to Mexico, and there was even some grainy surveillance footage that was believed to have been them doing just that. It would turn out to not be them. So, I went in search of surveillance footage regarding Wesley. And found nothing. Apparently, it was a case of too much time had gone by before people starting asking about it, and any footage that was obtained was likely gone by then. Also, the camera situation at the border changes all the time, and we can't even be sure there was a working camera going from the United States side to the Mexican side. So no footage. And since a lot of the talk is that maybe Wesley ran off to Mexico, having some footage from that day might have been very helpful to the case. Back to the McStay family story, tragically, their bodies would be found in 2013, some 3.5 years after they went missing. A suspect was arrested a year later. That suspect, Chase Merritt, was Joseph McStay's business partner. This leads me to look into Wesley's business partners. He was involved in a couple of startups. What do we know about that? Unfortunately, not much. Wesley's business partner, Dylan, is now considered the founder of On Deck Official, according to the website. There are social media photos of him and Wesley in the past. However, his public social media has no mention of Wesley. Even around the time of his disappearance, you'd almost expect a post regarding his friend that was missing, but there aren't any unless they were made private. I did reach out to some people that knew Wesley, but no one has any comment on that. I don't know if it's because they don't want to talk about it or perhaps they just don't know. This leads me to another interesting fact about this case. It seems that, while his mom is very vocal and putting herself out there working to keep Wesley's case alive in the media, we aren't really hearing from any of his friends. And, yes, that seems a little odd considering this guy was known by so many people, involved heavily in the social scene, and would likely be surrounded by a lot of people. Doing some social media digging did lead me to a possible dark side of this case. Not hearing this from Wesley's closest friends, but rather people in the San Diego and Pacific Beach area who knew Wesley, either casually or perhaps just in passing, said he had developed a drug problem. One person said he was always out and about, and he'd often leave places or be late because he would say he had to go meet someone. It isn't really clear what type of drugs he might have been involved in, or even if these statements are accurate. However, I do think, because of the social scene he was part of, being a club promoter and living in a Southern California college town near the Mexico border, I think drugs are a distinct possibility here. So let's talk about theories. Number 1. Wesley left on his own. If I put myself in the shoes of the investigators early on, I can definitely see why this was a thought. A young man, down on his luck, struggling, maybe he just had enough and had to get away. Even 2 months after his disappearance, when his truck was found, I think this was still thought of as a viable possibility. Wes almost seems like the poster child for this type of situation. However, Wesley was a social guy. Close to his family. Extremely active on social media. What are the chances he would stay away from all of that for 3 years? Even if he started fresh somewhere else, it seems he would have at some point reached out to his mother. Especially seeing how much she loves him and knowing they were a close family. Still, this is definitely the most hopeful of all the theories. Number 2. A drug deal gone bad. Unfortunately, I think this is a possible scenario. If Wesley had found himself into drugs and then subsequently found himself without a job or cash flow, Wes could have gotten himself into trouble. Did he owe someone money? Did he intend to go to Mexico to buy drugs and something happened down there? Number 3. Foul play at the hands of someone he knew. Maybe something else went down not related to drugs. Perhaps business related? Or was there an argument over money, rent, something else? Number 4. Suicide. I suppose this could also be a possibility, considering he was going through a rough time. But this is a young man with an education and a family network that loved him. He had someone to turn to if he needed to. The question also persists. How did his black Ford Expedition come to be in the spot where it was found? It was not really within walking distance to the border crossing. And except for saying that most of his personal belongings were found inside, nothing more has been made public knowledge. Such as his cell phone and wallet? Were they located? Were there signs of a struggle? We do know it was a rural area where it was found. Did Wesley have any connections to anyone that lived out there? Did he have car trouble, maybe running out of gas, a flat tire, or something mechanical? Could he have hiked off from there after leaving his truck? Police are being tight-lipped on those particulars, which leads me to believe they did find some evidence they might want to keep under wraps. So what do you think happened to Wesley Billingsly? At the time of his disappearance, Wesley was 5'8" tall, weighed about 140 pounds, had short dark hair and hazel eyes. Wesley also has several tattoos, including the flying ghosts with fangs from Ghostbusters in red, white, green, and black ink on his upper right arm at the shoulder, and a Japanese character right below the ghosts. Something is keeping people quiet in this case, but Wesley's mother deserves answers. If you have any information as to the whereabouts of Wesley Billingsly, or any information at all about his case, please contact San Diego Police Department at 619 531 2844.